Hey everyone, good morning and good evening to you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, folks.
Thank you all for joining today.
Of
Got
course, no problem.
Thanks for having us.
yeah, I got absolutely. I got a couple from the community. You're actually about a half and half divide. We got the community on the top and people from the core visuals team on the bottom. Injae, thanks for joining again, as well as Matt and Jacinda. Thanks for joining for the first time as well for this. For people tuning in, the goal of this is again to kind of have like a quarterly review discussion, water cooler conversation around everything that's been happening kind of from the reporting perspective of the Power BI universe, but also to have a bit of a rotating marquee of either community representatives or people that are part of the core visuals team. So that could be Miguel, any of the team members, or really just anybody that's part of like the report ecosystem of some of those updates, and give people a chance to kind of share perspectives, opinions, and for us just to kind of have good conversations around the topic. But what I'll do is I'll get started by kind of giving a chance for all of you to do a bit of a round robin for those either watching now or watching the recording. So I'll just kind of I'll just go clockwise. So pop over to you, NJ, if you want to start.
Hi, everyone. You may have seen me before. My name is Injae Park. I am a Microsoft MVP for Power BI. And mostly what I'm here to do is to be the not the expert this time and just really listen to Matt and Yacinda about what's coming for new core visuals. But also, if we have some time, maybe I'll show you some of the SVG stuff that I'm really excited for.
Excellent, thank you. And Jacinda, let's go to you next.
Sounds good. Hey everyone, my name is Jacinda Ng, and I'm a product manager on the Microsoft Power BI team. This is my first time joining this live stream, and I work closely with Miguel on the core visuals area. So I'm very excited to share kind of what new stuff we're working on, and then also just recent updates as well. I joined in January, so I'm a little bit new to Power BI, but I was previously on the Microsoft Fabric Data Warehouse team for the past 2 years.
Oh, nice. That's a big transition from essentially back end to front end too, from that. So nice. It probably is working a very different part of your brain in a lot of ways now too.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely like a really big change, but really enjoying it right now.
Awesome. Thank you. And then last but not least, Matt.
Yeah, engineering manager here on the core visuals team at Microsoft Power BI. I've been working on visuals. The joke is that I wrote a column chart in 3 different languages, and it was part of the whole Power View to Power BI journey, and eventually became a manager. But I wrote a lot of visuals code for a long time, so I understand a lot of what the customers are looking for and how to build visuals over time. Yeah, it's a really fun team to be on. I'm really glad to have Jacinda join us. And me and Miguel have been working really closely on the visuals refresh the last couple of years, which you guys are all aware of. So I'm here to talk more about that and maybe tell a little engineering perspective on how we're approaching things, so you guys can predict the future a little better.
So Matt,
you mentioned,
does that actually mean?
Go please, Injay, go ahead.
Sorry, Reed. Matt, does that mean you've been with Power BI since the beginning for 10 years?
Yeah. I joined Microsoft in 2012, and it was Power View days, and that's what I was hired to help build as an SDE 1. So
wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I can find it. Just speaking of the 10th anniversary thing, I love the new opening screen for Power BI. That's for the 10th year anniversary.
I love it.
Because the original green one with a B, that Power BI Designer, because it was Power Pivot, Power View, then Power BI Designer, then Power BI. But like, and I'm spacing on the product name, but what was the one of those icons that they show was like was it the letter B with a green thing? So the B was for BI, and that was Power BI Designer when it was in preview. Like the very, very limited watered down version of Power View that they migrated over. I'll still to this day lament on the fact that we had trellis options and small multiples in Power View 15 years ago, and it took us until 4 years ago to get it back in Power BI. I'm sure there was a performance or something consideration with like larger data, but it was still one of those like, why would you take away such a good feature?
Good question. And why aren't we finishing the feature that we started?
Yeah.
mean,
Like there's a couple small, like it's still mostly good. There's a few small gaps here and there.
yeah, we're aware
The
of the
only
gaps.
one,
Yeah,
yeah,
there's some
yeah,
conditional formatting that doesn't work the same way when you try to spread things out into multiples. There's visuals that don't support it, like pie chart and maps and so forth. We need to extend small multiples bucket to more visuals for sure.
The only one that I wish I could have an option of was I think it's the end. Well, the only primary one that I can think of is when you do the automatic analytics line, they're to be able to say like whether or not you keep the filter per or like apply it to all, kind of like have some like UI adjustment to say like, do you want do you want this line to be based on just a single cell, or would you like this analytics line to be an average of basically every single, if you had like 1 year on the axis, you wanted across all of them, the overall versus like
another
the
more
child
advanced
versus
feature
parent.
that doesn't quite
Yeah.
map well to when you multiply. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that one could get a little love. This and the spark light get a little love. It's
Everyone's GA now, man. What are you talking about? It's good.
It's still previews. What the at least as of like 6 to 8 weeks ago when I was looking, I still saw it in the preview section.
Okay, now I have to be careful with myself. But yes, it's probably going to GA here real soon.
Okay, well, it is one of those that just hasn't changed in about 2.5 years, I think.
Yeah, agreed. But it's a pretty complex feature end to end, right? Like we describe that in the query and we process a little subchart. And if you want to do that for every cell in a table or for every small multiple, it's a complicated thing. And then now people want to add all this rich formatting and all these things to it, conditional formatting or data labels conditionally. It's hard to support that as like a nested chart type. And so now we have this cool SVG approach that a lot of people are adopting. And that might be a little bit easier for us to just help people with templates, maybe build SVG quick measures or SVG visual calc templates. So we got a good segue to talk about that in the future, but we think that we want to make that easier for people. And we think that's going to be easier for us to support rich formatting.
Well, I mean, exactly like the SVGs, when working properly, because like it's a bit of a song and dance when building them out, but thankfully, people like Injae or Karen Kalasko or a bunch of others, and with the assistance of like a lot of the GPTs, you can build really good ones these days. The times that I've done it, I've often gotten them to like 99.9% of the time, but there's that one slice of selection which makes the dot show up in a weird spot or something every once in a while with some irregularities. But you can build some really cool stuff.
SVG out of your tooltip either. It's just this massive.
Oh yeah,
like your tooltip. We should probably give over removing default tooltip entries. Maybe.
The trick I've seen a couple really interesting tricks to that. One is you make a 1 pixel by 1 pixel report tooltip page, and you can assign that. You can also turn them off entirely. But that was there's like I think like 3 or 4 little tricks, but it's not native. You have to do a special technique to get rid of the blob code or something like that. But yeah, that would be nice if there's an integrated setting where if something is recognized as a like web image type, it will like not show raw code in certain conditions. But it is a good stopgap for sure with the when they finally, and it's not a quarter thing, but when they released the custom box size a couple years ago, finally, because the square SVG rendering limitation in the tables made them largely useless outside of like pie charts and other stuff.
That was a great quick win we did. We paid close attention to lots of good ideas and Reddit blogs, and we spend a lot of time looking at just where do we source our priorities from, and that one just became a very cheap, very high impact quick win, we call them, where just giving you guys the dimension control over the cell for an image in a table was something we were like, of course we're going to do that and make a lot of people happy. But it's not good enough, but at least it's something we know we can just ship immediately and make some of you guys really happy. So that was a fun one. So please keep the comments coming. We love it. It helps us understand where the pain points are. And when I hear workarounds like a 1 by 1 pixel custom report page tooltip, I shiver. Those things need to be fixed with real features.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say it here for anyone listening. The actual way to get rid of that tooltip is to go to tooltip, turn it on, turn the background transparency to 100%, turn the tooltip off, and then it disappears, which is crazy that you have to take 4 steps to do it. But right now, that's the workaround.
to have no
Oh, okay,
tooltip at
okay.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and both no tooltip in, I'm assuming either in edit or in edit mode or reader mode and all that, just to get it, because it also sucks just to have it like blow up on your screen even when you're developing too. But the one random question just on the tooltips, because and I'm just confirming with myself that it's not here yet, but I don't believe there's an option yet for that window to have an FFX button for those sizes. Is there? Where like you sort of for the size of the width and height.
In the table specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can't FX anything that's in number. We could, but we probably didn't.
The only I'm thinking of is the like because anytime I see something like that's a number, my immediate thought is like, ooh, what could I do if there was an FFX button there? But I imagine like the let's assume you had a column with this, and pre-assuming that you could also somehow auto tie the box width there to the column that it's being used in magically. It would, like, if you were showing 12 months, I'd only want it this wide, but 24 months would be like, it would basically change the box width and how wide the SVG is to allow for the same basically little lines and everything, so it wouldn't have to squish it further and further into a box as the range got bigger. So if you could have an accordioning thing like that at a table, that magic sauce, I'm sure from the community of cool stuff for that. Pretty cool though. I think if it ever came to that, I just had to look in the file just to double check, because sometimes those buttons show up and I forget that they're there, but not there yet. But I could imagine that could be turned on someday, which would be really cool. But speaking of SVGs and the fact, I want to bring up Injae, since we last spoke on the Q1, you were part of the Power BI World Championship. If you want to talk about that a little bit. Visual
right.
World Championship.
Okay, so the only thing I'll say is that, I'm super happy that Microsoft is taking a more community stance. They did have these Power BI World Championships in Vegas, which I found out that I was eligible to compete 2 weeks before Vegas. So I got my visa, got my, it's like, passport checked out, got the plane tickets, but it was really great time. And it's happening again next year for sure. And I think, Shannon already has some additional community things going on. And you can see me in that photo wearing that blue hat.
There you are.
So that's me. And I even have, one thing that's really cool is they actually gave us I actually have this.
Oh, please. Yeah. Show the shoes.
No, I got this award.
Oh.
So this is like my finalist award, which is cool, but it's also battery powered, so I don't have it on all the time, which is pretty neat. Okay, yeah, but in any case, it's like, so Vegas, that was a dream, and I actually did a lot of SVG stuff in my actual competition entry, as well as the competition itself was building a report live in front of like 800 people in 20 minutes, which of course isn't exactly possible. So everyone was given the semantic model, like the data file a week in advance, and everyone got some time to prepare. And we had to build the front end, it's like live in 20 minutes. And the winner, John Sandman, was really amazing. And he even had like what is it? Speed runs. If you've ever seen speed runs on YouTube, they've got like this timer that shows like the different times of different steps that you have to complete, and he was using that to time himself live on stage, which was very cool. And I was like, oh yeah.
Well, I mean, they have those. They have the Excel World Championships, right, every year, which has like collective cash prizes of a couple $100,000. But it's the people who like are doing some insane hotkey strokes and stuff like that on their keyboards to create like a 8,000 by 8,000 pixel image or some other stuff like instantly in Excel. It's nuts. Excel is the most, I'm trying to think of the right phrase, like a tool that is that has a variety of ways to use it for its non-intended purposes. I feel like Excel is like the king of that for like so many things.
Database.
Yeah, exactly. Number one, for the enterprise one. But even like people putting puzzles into it, I've seen people literally run Doom in Excel on a sheet. They have like a 320 by 320 screen, and it's running base code in the back end all logically done between like basically a computer that's been coded into the sheets that uses your keys to then adjust everything and like play the first level. Like it is nuts what you can do in that thing, or image generation. People putting puzzles and cute little like notes you can put to people into there where you have to solve the numbers and then it magically makes stuff appear on the screen. It's a very interesting tool in that sense, for digressions aside. But just as a mention of the World Championship, so I do you have them handy? Like I think the award's cool, but you got the kicks that came with that. Like, is that
I don't
anything
have
around?
them handy.
Okay.
No, but like so one thing that we got as participants was, it's like these Microsoft Fabric shoes. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you might have seen them. But the other thing was that these shoes were available for people to win at the conference. So, it's like they had a whole bunch of different events, like, if you could they had like some real-time intelligence for people who were doing sim racing, so you could win kicks there. You could win kicks, you could win these shoes by gosh, there was a challenge where you had to try to resolve some data questions, but you could use any tool that you wanted on Fabric, whether it was Microsoft Power BI, whether it was Copilot, whether it was it's like Fabric notebooks or something like that. And they had a couple of other places where you could win those kicks, but I actually tried to win another set and it was really tough. I'm really glad I got them just from participating in the championships.
I don't know if this is the exact one, but it basically looks like this. But there's a small Fabric logo and then they're green, right? I think. Yep. Yeah, like this is something, by the way, that I hope to get at some point, because there's a few things to qualify. It's like the top contributors to, I think, the blog or the community forums got them last year, but you have to do something really, really cool and impressive for Microsoft to give you a pair. So yours are very well deserved, but they are on my bucket list of, like, I want to put them next to my MVP award and a few others to hopefully have a pair of those kicks to start my sneakerhead collection someday.
I'm at a loss, man. I'm like, they're so comfortable. I want to wear them outside, but also I'm probably not going to be able to replace them if I use them, if I wear them out. So I'm like, do I keep them? Do I put them on a shelf? It's a conundrum.
And I do have one question just to bring up, and then I want us to dig into like the topics of kind of new releases. So let me come back to, where are we here? Oh, I lost there at the screen, and paste this up. So what are the from one of the questions in the chat? So what are the main risks of using SVGs for custom visuals in Power BI versus certified visuals like Zebra BI? So is SVG a viable long-term solution for production dashboards? Happy to let anybody take this answer. I feel like I know the person with a good opinion on this, though.
Hey, look, you know what? Do you want the biased opinion, or does anyone else want to give like a better opinion?
They're all biased opinions. But like if you want to go to take this first, and then I'll chime in if needed.
Okay, so I actually did a conference session about specifically this, right? Which is like when you're using SVGs, like what are the things you gotta watch out for, especially when you're using it as a workaround. But custom visuals are kind of a misnomer, because yes, the SVGs themselves do create custom things that are not out of the box, but they are integrated with normal, it's like Power BI visuals. They're native. So that's the big benefit. Are they actually useful? Absolutely. As long as the data that you're showing is streamlined and properly maintained in your DAX functions, then it can be a really good way to show code. And I don't think there's any problem with using it in production whatsoever. Problems can occur if you're trying to show, for example, 1,000 SVGs in a table, which people are trying to do occasionally, which, 1,000 might be a bit much. If you keep it to, it's like something reasonable, then it's absolutely no problem. There is no problem with using something like a third party, it's like visual, like a Zebra BI. Zebra BI has more functionalities. SVGs, for example, you can't click on them, but you can put SVGs into buttons and stuff. So you can still create some form of interactivity. But Zebra BI, it's like, and InfoRiver and other, it's like third party visuals do take it to a next level, but they're paid. And there's also like a lot of companies that are a little bit smaller might not be able to pay the licensing fee and stuff like that. So SVGs are just a little bit more accessible, and you normally, unless someone in your department actually says you can't use them, there's not that many risks. I'd say the biggest risk is that if you hand over to someone who doesn't know, SVGs, then they might look at this code and they might be like, I don't not understand SVGs. I know DAX and Power Query. And that is a real problem. But with ChatGPT, with AI, that's not as big of a problem anymore because it's a lot easier to just throw that code in and understand it.
Well, and I would say between myself, you, like Carrie, and others, the little copy and paste codes will often have variables and notes at the top where it's like, it might be 200 lines, but you only care about the first 15 because, like, all right, here's where the 3 spots where you can change the color you'd like. This is where your measure goes, and you do a find and replace to like swap out measure 1 with your sales amount that you're good. So like you can still templatize it to a degree, and like, yeah, you don't have to know how to build the car engine, but as long as you can drive it and fill the gas tank, for like a basic analogy, you can still use it. And then if it's wrong, you can just copy, spit it into a GPT, and like, hey, here's the image. It looks like this. Can you make sure that's like over here instead? And it will often be able to tweak the SVG because there's so much public information about that. It's a fairly recognized language to be able to code for that. So I agree. It's there's a teeny tiny performance cost, but there is also a performance cost with turning on the native Sparkline on a visual or other stuff. So use them sparingly. And if you're adding 15 milliseconds to a page, it's not going to hurt that much, I think, for a lot of these things. You did mention though, like SVGs and like buttons and other stuff. I do know you have some stuff to show on that. Would you want to show any of that at all, Injae?
Yeah, sure. Reed, why don't you pull up my screen, and I'm going to show one thing that we can do now and where that's going to be. And that's going to segue Matt into UDFs and stuff. Is that stuff that you guys are doing as well?
Yes. My team is working on this with other folks, but yeah, we don't own like, the function side is a different team completely, but yes, the connection. Sure. Got it. Yep.
Okay, so one thing that we can do right now is I've got tabular editor open, and this is a C# script, right? So if you it's like run this code, then it's like you can say, hey, I want to look at the current year by like the past year. I'm going to throw in some information, like I got parameter title in my it's like measures. I've got color that I want to use and maybe an icon in there. And basically that little piece of code that I've run in Tabular Editor, which is just like a free external software for Power BI, has now created an SVG for me. And this SVG is basically something that's created something like this. This is the actual SVG itself. This is what makes things reusable because you're now able to select the measures that you want to be using. But the problem is that this is C#. This is like another language. It's hard for people to use sometimes, it's like understand what's going on. So user-defined functions, which are something that they announced in Vegas, I think, in FabCon, is something that is going to allow people to basically create their own functions. And what that means is an SVG inside of Power BI, it's just a long piece of code. It looks scary and, because it might be, but the main thing about it is that I have basically just put in those measures that I'm going to use in a couple of different variables. And those variables are just going to be put directly into the code itself. I'm not really touching that, but this is still like a lot of stuff to think about. So what if Power BI could make user-defined functions? So you'll just call something like this, right? Forget everything underneath, and what it would look like is just call SVG1 and then put in the arguments like current year and it's like past year, parameter title, and all of that would just create an SVG. That's what the future is going to be, but it's also really nice. And I think this segues a little bit into you, Jacinda, and what you guys are doing, which is that this is an SVG. This takes a lot of time to make. But inside of Power BI, it's like buttons. One of the ideas that Miguel talked about last time is putting another visual space inside of the, it's like new KPI card so that you can have like an icon just for like the KPI card. And then below that, possibly, it's like an SVG there. And this would be like a micro chart / big number, it's like visual combo that you could have at the top of a screen. I think, do I have an example of something like that? Like, so something like this, for example, And the cool thing about it is that if it's an SVG, you can do lots of things with it. Like this, for example, is a button so that you can see that it's moving, it's like through different things. Right now, the only way I've gotten some interactivity is I've just added the accent bar. I could probably do more with it. But yeah, like there's a lot of things that SVGs can do. And hopefully in the future, Matt, just like you said, if they let us, or if there are just out of the box SVGs, that would be fantastic. These here are all SVGs, right? So these are all, it's like things that I've tried to create, which is fine, but it's also like, how would you say? SVGs is like, I think like Machi is saying, it's like a big can, no, like George is saying, it's like a big can of worms, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you can make them look like anything. The one downside with them versus say the DNEBs or the custom visuals is they're non-interactive, so you don't get the tooltip or the cross filtering. But they're great for mini charts to provide that stopgap until we start getting some of these new cards. Like that's in the core visuals roadmap where we'll be I forget the exact release for it, but the ability to actually have like integrated charts, say into cards and other stuff like that will eventually come, which will in many ways be able to replace some of these, because then you'll get something that looks nearly like this, but with the ability to actually like click on them, get the tooltips and other more interactivity part Power BI.
Yeah, exactly. We're working on that capability to almost have like an image hero or like a standalone image in addition to that call out value image. So this kind of mimics like the example that you have here, but you wouldn't have to create it from scratch. You would just be able to see that in the formatting pane and be able to just drag the image that you want. And so we're hoping that, we know that capability is definitely requested a lot by customers. And so we're hoping that that will be a part of kind of the capabilities we're working on that right now.
And speaking of just like some of the stuff being worked on, just in it might be a good time just to naturally segue into like some of the stuff that you and Miguel have been working on as well, if you want to speak about that.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the thing that I'm working on right now is bringing the new card to GA. We know that it's been in public preview for a very, very long time. I think it was in 2023. And so this is something that I'm actively working on. One of that capability that we're introducing here is what I just described, which is that standalone image hero that you could kind of add maybe in between your call out section and your reference labels, or you could reorder it around. Behind the scenes, Miguel and I are also working on what we're calling core visual principles, because we've noticed that there's a lot of inconsistencies between different controls and different visuals. Like some controls might be available in one visual and not the other. And we also have gotten that feedback, right, from customers as well, that there are those inconsistencies. So behind the scenes, this is something we're doing to set really clear guidelines of how these controls should appear and how they should behave across visuals, and we're applying that for the new card and button slicer. We're starting with these two first, so hoping that you'll see a more consistent experience when these visuals GA. And Miguel is also working on the button slicer GA as well, and one of the capabilities for that is, you might be familiar with the checklist slicer, where you're able to select, like for example, you have a column chart, you have a checklist slicer. If you select one column, the corresponding values in the checklist slicer will appear selected, but everything else is disabled. And you can either hide those, you can move those to the bottom of the checklist slicer and all of that. So we're trying to add the state of disabled to the button slicer as well. So you'll be able to see that capability soon as well. So those are just some things that we're working on. Hopefully you'll be able to see new card again go to GA. Same with the button slicer coming soon.
And speaking of just some of the designs and updates to these, there's actually a good question that'll pop up on the screen where there was a lot of formatting options that have been recently added to the new tile and the list slicers. Starting to miss a point on like having them as separate core visuals instead of kind of one with all of these options combined, to your whole thing of trying to like synergy. So from either of you two, Matt or Jacinda, any thoughts on this one at all?
Well, they are the same code, so that's hopefully helpful for you to hear. And they have the same formatting options for the most part. We don't allow hierarchies in a button. So, and there's different defaults. We want to help people make kind of the initial choice of, I want a list, a drop down, a button, or a date, or a numeric slider to be a choice. And we want to give people a first click entry point to like show us your intent of what type of slicer you want. Previously, you just drag a field into slicer, and if it was a date, it would just force you into a date picker. What if you really wanted a drop down? Now you got to go dig in there and try to find the slicer settings and change it. So we share as much code as possible. We're sharing the formatting options with different defaults. It is the same visual, the list and the button, which is when we first shipped list slicer, it was so similar to button. People were like, why'd you even ship this thing? I can do this with button slicer. Yeah, you can. But we're telling you we're making an incremental progress here. And when we shipped action states support for button slicer and list slicer, they're both, they both get that. So hopefully that helps. They are the same. They'll just have different defaults, and then you'll be able to kind of control what you want better.
Can I just take a moment and say I'm such a big fan of the action states? Like, nice. There's so many new things that you can do, and it's like there was a while back when the core, it's like visuals vision board came out, and it's like I created like an 1.5-hour long tutorial for folks to try to recreate that, and the number one comment was that we're not going to make this because we're not going to make 20 different bookmarks for like a report for one single navigation. And now you can like replicate that navigation with, it's like the list slicer with honestly not as much effort. I know that force selection is something that you guys are working on. I know there was like it's like a call that Miguel had as well. And I'm really excited for, it's like that piece to drop as well, because once that does, I think that a lot of people might not find use for it, but a lot of people who do use images in their slicer stuff will find it amazing. And, there will be a lot of people who are able to use that. I feel like as Power BI developers, a lot of people are kind of in their own industry, which is also a little bit of a bubble, because I know that Power BI, for example, is even being used by people in supermarkets and stuff, like when they're restocking, and it just being able to see like what image of like the product that you're restocking is like a huge deal. And I'm really glad that all of the use cases are really being thought of.
I haven't used it yet. It's a double-edged sword. Like I absolutely love the features of that. I just actually I just did an on-site training with 4 days with a client a couple of days ago down in California, and the one thing that like I have to carefully walk people through is like, all right, we're gonna go to the format page. There's going to be a long list of stuff to configure. But I'm just going to there's 300 options. I'm going to give you the 15 that I think are the most useful for like beginners, for like states and all that. The one thing I haven't touched yet, but I do know that there's like advanced state configuration where like, there's the default, like, they call them new names now, but it used to be idle, hover, press, whatever the terms are for it. But now it's like, well, on idle, when you hover, I want to do this, but if you're on hover already, or if you're on press, then I want there's like an infinite number of combinations you can do for those. I feel like it's one of, with those, it's almost to a degree you download the PDX where it's been pre-configured and use the format pager from a template that's built for that. Injae, I'm sure you poked around in those. I have yet to dive into that because I feel it's like the rabbit hole of like the most like web-like experiences you can build with some of them. But I do like that it can either just be very simple, just the color, 3 colors, 3 states, just makes it look clickable, or you can go to like, beautiful artistic stuff. So it can be beginner, intermediate, or advanced. But at least there is the shared states that are now between all of them. I'll just simply say that like the number one thing that I love about it is just single select with deselect. It just the fact that that's just not been around until now, like that is such a annoying requirement for clients. And I'm sure most Power BI developers have had to build that like month and year list with like, you would have to put the word current for the current date, like in a calculated column, because you need to default to the current or something like that. And you can't deselect, but you only ever want one selection, or you have to do some backend magic basically to get around that odd fixed selection that doesn't work for everybody. So like that's such an easy one out of the box for some of those. Let's see. I do have another follow-up on from the chat that I want to bring up. Then I want to talk about some other like recent updates and features. So from Michael, he wants to know, is there any time where we might expect slicers with default actually, yeah, exactly what I was just talking about. And the ability to click on cards for actions like URL. Both are on the roadmap, but don't know if there's timing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't dug into it yet, but doesn't somebody did a blog post about the button slicer, I think, where there like a dynamic default selection was happening with it. I know that's on the roadmap of like being able to have a measure say which is the default. So I don't know if that was a hack or if that's a new feature that was released. I've not read the blog yet, but I did see that on LinkedIn. So maybe that's a question to Jacinda or Matt. But is the like a dynamic default? Is that still on the roadmap as an option, or has that come out?
No, we haven't shipped that yet. That is definitely a large to extra large feature, right? To get it right. That's one thing you might see advertised for a custom visual that just doesn't work. Like even forced selection for chiclet slicer. If you have two chiclet slicers on the page and one of them is city and one of them is state, well, if one of them gets forced selected first, then the other one could have to wait its turn. There's this sequencing and there's this dependency that can just break, and it does. It breaks. So if you have one on the page, you're fine. If you have multiple, if you want to actually solve that problem, it's really complicated. To have the whole page be aware of all the slicers and all the logic they're using to pick a default so that everybody picks a default that works with each other. It's hard, and you have to push that all the way into the query. And so we're actually working on it now. We're prototyping it. We're discussing with architects. It's going to be a while, but we know it's very, very high on the list of requests. So we're trying to solve it. We're going to start with maybe something really simple, some simple presets like pick the first thing or the most recent thing. And so you can always have one thing selected. It's kind of a performance helper. A lot of people don't want to ship a report that has either one thing selected that might be based on RLS. And so I don't want them to see something that they can't choose based on their role anyway. So I can't save the report and ship it and have everybody be satisfied. So, but I want it to see who they are, then pick the first thing. I don't care what it is, just pick one thing before the whole page loads too much data. So that's something we can try to solve first, and then we'll get into more complicated rule-based measures, choosing by default eventually. But yeah, that's definitely a fun challenge. It's coming.
Well, and I think to your point is the issue with having a select from field and basically allow a measure in there is it's very easy for that to become circularly dependent with cart and the horse with the page. But if you just have a UI where it's like, no, you could have like a relative date, like always select current month or always select current, something like that, but like where it selects that selection from a column or something that forces it to write the code via UI choices, drop downs or selections, or like an if statement kind of a thing. That can at least put the horse blinders on and not just allow the keys to the kingdom, and probably a lot of like code breaking if people try to like write their own measures that could easily error out. So it seems like a smart first step to give some basic options and then add to it, because for this to work 100% of the time, which any native feature kind of needs to do across all the millions of models that have been built, it probably a lot of considerations to go into. Next, let me pop that off. Well, I'll do one more question that I have here, and then there's a few other things that I want to just mention that are like on the roadmap, so to speak. So from Sohail, and sorry if I Sohail, if I got the name wrong, but oh, go ahead.
Reed, I'm so sorry. Can you share my screen? I just want to go back to that last question for 1 sec. I was just trying to show a workaround. All right, so I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but basically what this is I've put these KPI cards into a table. Inside of a table, you are able to, if you have a KPI cards like this and you put in the web URL, you can basically make it so that if you click on the table, it takes you to a web page. So it is actually possible to do something like that with SVGs, but this is a hack on top of a hack. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but technically it's possible to do. You can only do this with tables right now. You can't do it with list slicer buttons or anything like that, because those are buttons and those are filters on the data. You can't do it with buttons because buttons right now don't accept SVGs. But if you were willing to go to this link, technically you could probably do something like that.
So there is a technically yes solution, but it requires a few hoops to jump through.
Yeah. So the quick answer is no. The long answer is no, but.
That's fair. And then let me pop this just last one on. So this is there any expected roadmap on like custom legend sorting? for I guess just native charts?
We shipped a stopgap here. I know it's not great, but we had complaints with left-right legend color order not matching the stack order in stack charts. So you can invert if your stack is always positive or negative. You can invert the order, but it's still drawing series secondary groupings. A legend typically for charts is the order of the sort, the order that they come back in from the query. So that's,
Okay. Oh, nice.
that's the way to kind of, if you can game that order, if you can make the series come back in the order you want, you'll get custom order. Beyond that, there is no UI that's in the near future where you can kind of drag around your series and reorder them really easily. I know Tableau has an easy feature. I know a couple other competitors make this easier. We want to do a similar thing. We want to make it easy, but it's not on the, it's not this semester. Let's leave it there.
Yeah, because it's it goes in the order of the fields. So sometimes you want like a certain bar to be in front of the other bar, but you want it to be in the reverse order. The fastest way that I've done it is it's either the same measures, or if I'm trying to like milk performance, I'll have a few placeholder measures that I put in. Honestly, the tree map visual, and the reason that I like that is you can actually collapse the tree map where it hides the visual entirely, and it can be about that wide, and it just shows the legend. Other visualizations I've noticed, like bar charts, when you do that, it ends up just showing that little chart icon, and it said this is too small to render. But the tree map's really good as a custom legend that I just overlay on top of it. Again, like for maximum performance, I'll just have a couple of like local placeholder measures with the same names. I put them in an order, change the color, just stick it right on top of the original legend, and like group and do the appropriate settings for that. But it's I would say it's not the end of the world for that. Yes, it would be nice if it's integrated, but that takes 2 or 3 minutes to do. And it is at least a temporary solution for some of those. So you can definitely get something that by the time it hits the report layer, the imperceptible in terms of the fact that there'd be two things there, other than maybe the quick little blip of like, the separate image visuals rendering on the page. But it is at least a solution. But yeah, for anybody curious out there, oddly enough, I don't really ever use the tree map, but the most common use case for it is as custom overlaid legends when I'm doing a bunch of visual calcs and other stuff where I needed a special display to explain the data better than the native legend would based off of whatever fancy visual that I've done. I don't know if what you do in Injae is like I don't know if you have like an SVG rendering or anything else
I
like the tree map
stuff from PowerPoint when I need to have
Okay.
like a global, it's like legend, because it's like the reality is that it is good visual practice in my opinion for colors of different things on different visuals.
Yep.
If they still refer to the same thing, they should be the same color. Like sales should be the same color. That makes sense. If you have sales, profit, and units sold, very classic three, it's like KPIs for any kind of production. Those three things across, it's like multiple visuals should be the same color. But of course, you don't want to have multiple legends that show the same information, right? So sometimes I just copy and paste that image or screenshot that image from Power BI and put it as an image. Sometimes I get the size wrong, and sometimes it's just better to do it as an SVG. But I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I even just go ahead and use the tree map as a legend. That's something I've done before.
Yep. And thankfully you can actually, as long as you're using all native shapes in PowerPoint, you can save those as SVG. But the one downside to the image is there's always that little bit of image fuzz that it's not like that perfectly rendered thing, which is why I tended to use the tree map. Is it annoys me as a stickler for design when I get that little bit of like the resolution scaling where it's you can tell that that's an image just because it's not as sharp as what's above it, and it is at least solved either A, if you save as an SVG, or B, you just do the layer, the other visual layer ordering.
I have a really good way to solve this. Basically, if you have bad eyesight like me, you can't tell the difference. So,
all right. So I just got to give myself another 10 years, and it's golden. Or just smear some Vaseline over the screen.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good topic. Like our team owns themes too, so I don't know if there's any questions on themes out there from the community, but we have been shipping little improvements here as well. Style presets shipped recently, which is a really cool way to configure multiple different flavors of groups.
Matt, I have something to show you. Okay.
Oh yeah, you got something?
Yeah,
all right, fired up.
Okay.
But I'll finish
right.
by saying one thing we really want to do eventually is give people the ability to do the the model coloring. Go into your model, basically set profit color, set sales color for your measures, and then actually open up dimension fields, go through your different types of candy bars and give them all colors too, inside of the actual field rows. That would be great, because then any report that's built on that model has consistent coloring, right? So that's a pipe dream feature for us, but we know about it. We want to do it. Hopefully,
that's cool. Yeah,
it's coming soon.
All right, so check this out. So you guys know how it's really annoying to make JSON themes, right? Like JSON themes are great and the visual styles are really good, but it's like conventionally you have to go and use like a theme, an online theme generator or something, because it's really hard to go in and make
at least to his credit, Mike's theme generator is pretty awesome.
It's really
the one that
really
he does
good.
It, yeah.
But the problem is I'll go and make something like this. And I'm like, you know what? I want this kind of stuff in my JSON theme, but I'll have to go and make it again, basically from scratch in your online generator. So what I'm working on, because I'm a crazy person and I don't know Python, is I'm vibe coding a Python code, which is now 1,000 rows, to take the report schema from the PBIP file and turn it into a JSON theme. Now, this is incredibly difficult because there are so many things that do not match. Even capitalization of certain things like it cause issues and stuff. So this is something that I'm hoping will work. I know that some people like Ahmad from it's like our LinkedIn data community have had some success, but there are some like very, very small things that cause issues like accents or alignment, and it's just like if you don't get the it's like actual value into the JSON theme just perfect, it will not work. And basically it works to a certain extent and I'm like so it's like I'm able to extract like all of the different styles, it's like, and it's like with different coloring and stuff like that, and that sort of works. But I'm really hoping that, it's like in the future, you guys will be able to give us something where, it's like inside of a Power BI report that people have already created to reuse some of those formatting for a JSON theme.
Yeah, so we have a fun hackathon that has been sitting around for a little while, where essentially it's this: you use the product as your theme generator. You have a visual that you love, you go to the format pane, you scroll to the bottom, and there's a button that says, stamp this visual to my theme file. And you just click it, and it takes all the properties for that visual and it creates a new style preset entry. You can name it, and that's it. I mean, it's kind of basic. I don't know if it meets the bar for product level shipping quality. It's kind of a weird thing to have a, save this specific visual setup as into your theme file, but it would be helpful, like you said, to capture stuff you've done in prior reports. You could save all that stuff, all that hard work you've done. Conditional formatting rules references to measures or columns won't really work, right?
For sure, right? Because they're called different things, right, in semantic models.
Yeah, it won't translate to other visuals or models, and it won't. We can't declare everything in a theme file that you can do in the format pane. But yeah, I think it would help with a lot of things. So if that seems useful, let us know.
I mean, technically you can. It's just you have to use third-party tools for that.
Right, and then like what you've done, right, which is crack open the report and copy it into the theme.
But like Injae, imagine if like someday on like because now with the we have the prep data for AI, and I believe if you right-click a visual, there's now an option to say like save as question. Can you just right-click on the bar chart? Set up as a verified answer. I would love a button someday to say set as visual default. You build a visual out. If you do that, then like having a UI option to immediately just take everything, stick it into the theme file in the backend would be like magic sauce.
Exactly.
That would
be
so
put
nice.
a button in the format pane, like, or in the dot menu.
Yeah.
Visual properties.
Exactly. Yeah. Either in the format pane or there, but yes, just exactly, just to show where it could go. But like, that would save so much hassle and stuff down the road, because it's you want to minimize the death by 1,000 cuts and repetitive stuff once you've had the vision.
Yeah, I think if we can hide it in a context menu, we can probably ship it. So
hey, look, Matt, I'm telling you guys, I'm begging you guys, ship it. Like,
please, I'd love it.
It might seem like a small thing, but
one user,
if JSON themes are able to do this, then I think the ability to use JSON themes inside of an enterprise will dramatically increase, because the problem is always that you want to have a similar style, and we try to use colors. We try to keep to the base formatting in a lot of cases, across a lot of enterprises, because that way everything looks the same and we only change the colors, right? But if we were able to do more things like, we have standardized borders around every single, it's like bar chart type, for example, and one person creates a mock-up report of everything, and then it's like that would just be someone doing their job and just doing Power BI stuff instead of having to learn it's like to use a theme generator or something. And I'm sure a lot of people would love to do that. At least one guy would love to do that.
Yeah, and it's I think what I really like is the back, all the history of all the reports you've ever made. You can go load them up and then click a button to save some of it into a theme file, and it's a really nice fast forward button, I think, for people who don't want to go in there and handcraft JSON, but they remember they've got some styles they like. I want to announce one feature that didn't get a lot of blog or documentation because it's in preview.
Oh, please.
It just is shipping right now as we're speaking. I don't know if you guys have heard of org themes before. There is a feature.
Yes, yeah.
There is a feature now rolling out where you can go into your admin portal in the service and upload a theme file and say, I want this to be my org's theme. And you can actually see it in desktop. When you go to desktop themes, it's on top of your choices. So you can kind of drive consistency across your enterprise now with this feature. And it's
that's wonderful.
Do you have is there a link or like blog on that? Because I would love just to either show it or just point it out for people to go look at it.
It's coming out soon, probably tomorrow.
Okay. Great, gotcha. So announced, but not out. Yeah.
Desktop shipped with the ability to find these when you're signed into desktop. It'll go look for them.
Okay.
But you couldn't make them until tomorrow. I think is when it's going to finish deploying everywhere in the service as an admin. And you have to be an admin. Not everybody is, so it's kind of an advanced feature. Like it's kind of paralleling the org custom visual feature, if you guys have ever used that. So it's a similar pains experience in the admin portal.
That's actually really awesome. Like if you don't have semantic link labs, it's like a nightmare to try to reapply or change themes across reports. Even if you have 20 reports, downloading the report, putting the theme on, uploading it back is like,
well, that is still something we are discussing changing, but right now if you change that org theme, we won't update all your reports automatically because that can break stuff. Like even if you just change the font size for something, now you've got word wrapping or a scroll bar on 100 reports and it's a fire. So we want to make it intentional. You would have to go to that report and click on the org theme again and then save and publish. But we could potentially add a toggle that says, update every report that uses this. It's got a reference to it.
Yeah, but then if you couldn't revert, then it'd be very dangerous, right? Yeah.
It is, right? And we have notebook examples of people scripting this with Fabric APIs. So you can do it. You can get a list of report GUIDs and loop them and update their theme files programmatically if you want to. But we kind of want to make it an advanced feature.
For sure.
I've had really show some really cool stuff related to that as well. But again, it's just the for SMB, maybe not as relevant. For all you need is like 20 reports or higher. Like being able to just do those batch changes, because my favorite analogy is just death by 1,000 cuts. It really just it kills productivity and time when you got to do something over and over again, like the monkey at the keyboard. When it's you'd love to just script out those things and do, or like change a logo, and replace the image file across all of the stuff, which is now possible, with scripting and other stuff like that. So it really is a massive time saver for some of these things. Yes.
Can I ask for one more thing? Can you guys do
Please.
visual styles for backgrounds? I'm not sure how big of an ask this is, but this is something that I've wanted for many years now. Like lots of people have standardized backgrounds, whether it's like, a gray background with like white bubbles for spaces or something like that, or, it's like different sizes of, it's like canvases. But if we were able to put like 5-10 conventional backgrounds, this would be analogous to kind of what I think Power BI tips, Mike Carlo, what they call scrims, where, it's like you have like a organization. So the background would be that organization for us so that we would be able to select between, it's like different things that we would want. And that would be are really nice to have, because if you already got those, then it's not like so many clicks to be able to, it's like move a couple, to upload a couple of backgrounds. But it would be a really nice way to ship almost every single visualization item that you want into the theme. So the backgrounds is like, it's something that I would love to see.
You mean extend
I will take-
style preset concept to page?
To just the canvas background, but yes.
So the style presets is what I want to take that one step further. So I personally don't like scrims because I use the snap to grid to make everything pixel perfect in size, and like there's always a couple of extra steps to like you have to turn that off to get them just right and in size inside of those, because it's they're not always like, they might be a pixel off. And again, I'm stickler for like, so snapping with a background object behind it, like just a square shape frame, set a couple images inside of it. That is my scrim. I lose like 15 milliseconds of load time because I now have an extra object. But in a picture perfect universe, like if there could be something where you could say for shapes only, set as background. So when you publish, it automatically takes that shape and literally just converts it and sets it into the background as part of the image. And like it just, whatever its the location is, it just makes that an actual background image. So that would be so cool. So you could build your scrim, you move it a couple inches, the next time you publish it just becomes the background in that new spot. But it doesn't have to load them all individually. It literally becomes an actual, and this is separate from the maintain layer order. It would be like a separate toggle for that. But that would be such a cool way to like integrate scrims in desktop without having to use like PowerPoint or Photoshop, and you'd always have that perfect background design. That would be really, really, really cool.
Okay. I promise this is the last time, but can you share my screen?
Yes. No, please. Like this is all just supposed to be like, we conversation, wish list.
Can you guys see
discussion.
this? So this is a concept that I made 2 years ago. And this is just like, okay, I don't know if I can make this bigger. Oh, yes, I can. Okay. So the idea was this, right? So if you have a canvas background, and you guys might recognize this as like the skateboard, it's like report from Power BI back in the day. And you can put base 64 images as the background for one, but it's just one image that you can put. So if you could put multiple items and you could just, click between these to have like a starting point to start building your reports, that would be awesome. That's it.
This would be the easiest to deliver. Like my request, I'm sure would take more time, but like if you ever have one of those things that's, oh yeah, we can get that done in a week. Yeah, like those are the easiest asks to ask if it actually is a low cost to add to the team. Like the controls over the frame for SVGs, I would assume that probably didn't take too much time to like update, because you just had to expose it in the UI. It was already there in the code. Those are those like perfect wins, I'm sure, for the any of the teams at Microsoft, is they realize there's a feature request that's like basically just making something visible. Nothing's actually changed in the code base.
Yeah,
all right,
we're
guys.
always looking for those.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Our
Matt.
way. No, I was just saying we're always on the lookout for quick wins. Let's send them our way.
Yeah, look, I'm going to start.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I'm going to stop asking for things, because I feel like we're just ambushing you with like more features that we want.
Well, just to reel it back into like things that came out, because we're getting close to time. There's no hard stop, but at least I want to recap on a couple of things. So for my notes, some big ones were I would say is some new visual calc improvements. So they added lookup and lookup with totals. It's the best way I can describe it as is it's basically like a calculate filter function, but specifically for visual calcs. It's like calculate this value, look up for this filter. So they did add those, and and as I'm talking about these, I'll drop a few links in the chat. But I know Injae, you really like visual calcs. Between Matt and Jacinda, I don't know if you use them a lot as well, but they are an underrated feature. I think both for a mixture of that it's I think the community representatives have been the ones who've needed to show the power for them with cool visuals, but they're also a little hard to find. But that was one good feature that did come out in the last quarter, with some updates to that with more functions that are built specifically for it. I'm dropping a link into there. But feel free to drop any or to do any comments to that. Otherwise, I can go to the next feature that I have on my list.
I will say visual calculations are really amazing and people should try them. but you know, the main thing that I think that it can really improve for people is the speed, and you know, like people are really sleeping on it.
Oh yeah, yeah, because all you have to do is, you know, make sure your measure that you drop into there is the same as the other ones. And you can either A, make it a placeholder name, or you just drag it in. If the name used to be page views, rename your measure to page views, it links to it and then name it back to whatever it should be, and they sync. So yes, you can have the copy paste templates of like custom layering, you know, things that have like 7 visual calcs that are all hidden to do some fancy stuff. So yes, that reusability that I've seen you blog on a lot. I hadn't thought of it before you started doing that, and I've definitely now done that for a few of my visuals, where I realized like I can, even for myself as a developer, just reuse them really easily. So that is a fantastic feature for sure. This one actually slipped by through me, so let's add this banner. I'll just actually paste these as some updates. So the field parameter has sort persistence now. That was really nice. So any custom sorting when switching fields goes back. So maybe, I don't know if either of you know this, but, and I think it's still not the case. So custom sorting does stay when you go back. The one thing that I think still doesn't, though, is hierarchy expansion, because a lot of field parameters are used to build like custom matrix tables where you can choose the rows, you can choose the columns, you can choose the values. So it's basically a give me everything, but with buttons rather than having to use the customize visuals option. But I do think that it still resets the hierarchy, even if the sort ordering. So hopefully it is something that will come in the future for that.
Yeah, it's
yes.
coming real
okay, because
that's
cool.
Sort
so then,
order
yeah,
and drill or expand state was critical. They're similar, so we kind of started the tech for supporting both when we did the sort stuff.
Because I'm guessing it basically just has to cache the query configuration in terms of like when it recognizes, oh, hey, this query is back again. The last saved configuration was X. I'm just going to reapply it. Yeah, excellent. So like it's a good first step for sure. Because
these things,
yeah. Please go ahead.
We kind of needed to remember not an exact field, but a reference to a field that might change. So it's like it's rewriting a bunch of code that supports something more dynamic. So it's not easy, but it's coming along. So we hopefully.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, yeah. Because I even just did a stopgap video where it's like, hey, if you want to use field parameters but don't want to have to like expand 12 levels, you know, to go back to it, like you can kind of combine bookmarks with it. So you can have a bookmark of say 5 standard configurations. If I want like level 5, 4, 3, 2, you know, whatever that order is, you can click those, or you can click like custom order bookmark, which pops up your little configuration thing. But this would eliminate a lot of that. So that would be once these things come out, that'll be fantastic for field parameter pairing with like matrix tables. Let's see. Another good recent update was the paste into slicers. Be able to take concat. I think it's like it's either commas, semicolons, but you can do a string and paste it into the multi-select slicers. So easy way to transfer those over, which is also again a huge time saver for that stuff. So that's really convenient.
Yeah, we found a lot of people where their workflow is required going to some other tool to look up like stale contracts or accounts and then pasting them into Power BI to go look for something else. And, you know, hundreds or dozens, typing those in manually or searching for them is super painful. So this is a great productivity boost for, you know, those specific customers with that workflow. And there was a custom visual, I think, that did it. And then it started charging. I don't know the specifics. I don't want to shame anybody, but so I think customers were very upset and had to try to find another custom visual to use. And now it's in the product. It's in preview, visuals only, but hopefully that'll be GA soon.
Yeah, I will say like it's amazing to have, you know, it's like this feature. Like I think my first data job was doing exactly that. I was like checking invoices versus, you know, it's like other invoices, bookkeeping and stuff. And I'm like, you know, if I had that in a Power BI workflow, it would have saved me days at a time, really, like days in a month.
Exactly. Like a lot of those are like just designed to really help save the time. And like, I just want to mention just one thing on custom visuals is, like, I know the visual you're talking about. Oh, there you go. Blurred away. I feel it's talking to the developers who do that. Like they're very expensive to make. So yes, it sucks when you have to go to that. But if I remember, like they had a fairly decent development cost. So you're kind of like screwed either way. You either have to keep supporting it for free and just hemorrhaging money into it, or you have to figure out some way to recoup some of the costs. But it's a lot harder to do that when it was free to start with versus like paid from the get-go. So like that's I think where the big issues came in when customers
I
got
want to
really grumpy.
recognize all the custom visual developers out there filling our gaps for us, because we've had lots of glaring gaps for a long time, and we're starting to fix them. I apologize if I'm encroaching on anyone's revenue stream. But it is a Microsoft product. I think customers expect copy paste to work, and there should probably be left-right alignment for value. So we're catching up slowly. Chiclet Slicer was Microsoft made, so I can bash that all I want. We're trying to replace that with the button slicer, and hopefully you won't have to go download and install a custom visual for that type of slicer in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you guys out there who are helping fill the gaps. We do appreciate it, and customers need that stuff. So.
I'll do two more mentions. They're just my two other favorite things for that actually came out, and then I'll do like a final wrap up of any remaining comments before I log out. But yes, you were right. Sparklines are in GA now with calc groups. I think they are out of preview. As far as I know, there's no like new changes, so it's still just the bar and the line. And but I didn't actually realize because I've never tried it before. But I guess I'm assuming the calculation group support that I at least got off of a blog post maybe means that they hadn't been supported with them before. But non-GA for that.
GA blockers were more deeply technical with calculation group support, top-end filter support.
Okay.
The UI of them is good enough to GA. We're not really extending that to other visuals right now. It's table matrix only. But yes, in its incarnation, it should work compatibility-wise with all of our other features now, and so we can say it's ready. And accessible as well. It does give accessibility summaries out when you keyboard nav to them and stuff. So all that stuff is ready.
And just one really quick question. Get the thing popped up here. Just on what we were just talking about with the pasting Excel values. So does anybody know if there's a limit to how many can be pasted? Is it absorbently high where you would never be tilted off of 5,000 values, or is it like 254?
It's pretty high. It's over 1,000, a couple thousand. I think we got to a point where the architects are like, that's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
And so if you hit the limit, if you have a complaint, let us know. It's semi-arbitrary right now. It's more about, we don't want to cause performance concerns for folks. We don't want your DBA to call you and say, what is this query coming from? That's all.
It's a very high limit. Yeah. I mean, if at that point you're doing that many, like, have a categorical grouping for them. Like, have a child, like a name, a subcategory, category. Like, filter off of something that it's that's going to group those together 100%.
Winston just posted in chat that someone on LinkedIn posted that it's 2,000. So
that's so many.
Sounds about right. Yeah, I think that's where we landed.
I mean, like, how many SKUs does a Walmart have? Like, I don't know.
But again, that point though, they're gonna you're gonna have categories for those. This is gonna be produce and milk and something along those. You would hope in the model design. All right, last one. There was some updates to the line chart segment formatting, so like individual lines and areas that I had in my notes as well. So a few more like formatting options that can go down to that at a more bespoke level. But those are pretty much the big ones that I had. Also, as a good opportunity for if Matt or Jacinda, if you had any comments to that. Otherwise, I'd say we can also then wrap up with like closing thoughts at this point as well.
Yeah, there's one more.
All right. I was going to say, Jacinda,
you can go first.
The final embedded mode, which is single tile dashboard embed, which allows it to work in places like Power Apps. We have partner solutions that use our dashboard tile embed APIs inside of them. So Power Apps can now use an Azure Map dashboard tile and a few other places. So full parity with all the stuff that Bing Map used to support for embed modes now.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. And you said that was for the Azure Maps, right? Yep. I will say my favorite thing that's this part of that I rarely use, but the filter by distance. You can pick a dot and then say like 25 miles away from here or a 2-hour like distance, which will literally do by via road. Then it will draw like a custom shape around the physical distances from a drop that you put onto there. Like if you're trying to search for like, show me all activity, from that, I think that's such a cool feature for a filter on the map visual. I love it. But digressions aside, Jacinda, you had a comment as well.
Yeah, one more enhancement that I wanted to call out that is shipping. I think like tomorrow, probably along with like the or themes, but please correct me if I'm wrong on that, Matt, is the enhancements that we're making to the pie charts. We're adding the apply settings to for pie charts, so that allows you to set like the color and the transparency for a specific series within a pie chart. We're also adding.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting to see as well. And then we're also adding the hide inners borders toggle as well, so you could hide the color between like the slices of a pie chart, and I think that's also to be consistent with our other visuals as well. So that you'll see documentation and blogs come out for that very soon as well, but just wanted to highlight that's
so like solid color outlined, like maybe transparent, like so kind of where you do on the bar charts and others, where you have those extra like border and hide inner settings, but for the pie.
It is
nice. Okay.
What we did to column chart 6 months ago or so.
Yep. Cool.
So you'll be able to explode a pie chart.
And it was a ramp up.
Ooh, can you explode a pie? Will there be like spacing?
Like pseudo explosion with like white inner lines, maybe?
That would be cool. Sure. I mean, all you have to do is like it just basically equidistant them apart from each other. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not that easy. The outer curve needs to be relaxed as you explode, so it's not super easy. It's geometry. It's fun.
Okay. There's more math involved, and there's almost always more math involved than you think.
Don't ask Power BI developers about geometry.
Excellent though. So thanks you for filling in the gap for the last 2 points. But then otherwise, just any remaining comments or any links or references to check out, I'll just ask you one at a time. So like any final remarks from you, Injae?
No, honestly, guys, it's really nice to be able to talk to you. I'm really big fan of the stuff that's coming, and like I'm really excited to see what Power BI is going to look like in a year. It's like with all of the changes that are coming.
Oh yeah, like I dropped the link once earlier on, but again, just continue to check out that core visuals vision board. That stays updated. Like the one thing that does make, I think, the Power BI core visuals team unique is the vast majority of the is in development and has been released is all there. Unlike most of the other arms of Power BI and Microsoft is usually there's private preview for like certain companies, MVPs, and then it goes into public. But for the most part, it's just as soon as we start working on something from like Miguel's team, we're just going to let you know it's going to be on the board. So that is the cool thing, is you actually get a much longer roadmap of features that are coming out for visuals that is, as far as I'm aware, unique to only the report and visualization stuff, which makes it easier to talk about because you don't have to worry about like, wait, is this public or not yet? For the most part, no, it's just on the vision board. You're good. Any closing remarks from you, Jacinda, or Matt at all?
Yeah, nothing more here that I'd like to add today, but just keep your ideas coming. Again, like upvote those ideas that you want us to implement on that core visuals vision board, and you can also use the like community platforms to add any additional ideas as well that might not be there. But we'd love to kind of see more of what you would like for us to work on, and just keep an eye out for the features that we're releasing as well.
Perfect. And I just dropped both the links into there again for the vision board and then the Power Fabric.ideas to be able to vote on this. I like that you have it built in. Is like right on the vision board there in pretty much any of the sections in the upper right. Well, actually, I'll just pull it up real quick. Let's just go back to us and do a share just to show people, because it is a really cool report. This one and allow. Yeah, so this little click to vote, this is right there. Like that's basically what I'm referring to. So that will let you vote on any ideas that you like of anything in here, and it helps you get traction. I'm sure you can speak more to it, but the more votes something gets under here, at some point there's probably enough where if something pivots and, in 6 months it gets 1,000 votes from like 20, they might even help to encourage like readjusting like resources potentially, and like, hey, maybe we should focus more on this. So like you guys do listen to a lot of feedback, and it at least helps to have conversations on what is the most important for the community get sooner than later sometimes. Cool. Let me close this out. But then, yeah, if nothing else, then I want to thank you all for joining as well. This has been fantastic, and hopefully see some of you on for one of the next ones as well when we do this again in the upcoming quarters.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me as well.
Thanks, Reed.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.